Story 1. We limited our parents' influence early on so we could figure out what works for us as a couple. We are approaching 42 years of marriage and apply the same approach with our now married children. Story 2. You can sneak hundreds of bobby pins into a woman's hair. A truly ridiculous number. Getting them all out took nearly an hour. Story 3. There is something special about marriage. I used to be one of those people who did not understand its purpose. It seemed like just a piece of paper. If I love my partner, marriage would not change how I feel. But fast forward, marriage actually did change things in subtle ways. It added a layer of emotional security and commitment that affects how we approach life decisions. There is also a feeling that is hard to describe. It feels different when I mention my husband in conversation compared with when I would say boyfriend. For many people, there is added reverence and respect for our relationship. Story 4. The people who had been asking when you were going to get married immediately switched to asking when you were going to have children. Story 5. From day one, my husband went to a bar after work instead of coming home. We did not live together before marriage, so I did not know this. He came home drunk every night. It was a terrible way to start a marriage, and it led to divorce. Story 6. Every day of your marriage is full of opportunity, and how you use your time will shape your relationship. Maintaining a lifelong partnership takes work. You must learn from mistakes and communicate effectively. If both partners put in the necessary effort, marriage can be a beautiful thing. If one becomes selfish, lazy, or stops communicating, it can fall apart. Story 7. It is really fun to call him my husband and to be called his wife. 2 years in, it still has the same novelty. Story 8. Nothing changed. My wife and I had lived together for 3 years and had been dating for 5. We had a 2-year engagement because there was a specific time of year and location we wanted that was not available the year after we got engaged. If you are committed, love one another, and want to spend the rest of your lives together, a marriage certificate and a party do not change that. That said, the tax refund we received in our first full year of marriage was substantial. Story 9. All the boomer jokes about hating one's wife and almost all stand-up bits claiming that women are fundamentally different from men are nonsense. Pop culture has lied to us. Marriage is great. There is an attractive woman who lives in my house and she loves me. Story 10. For me, absolutely nothing changed in the best way. I think we made that commitment to each other mentally long before signing the paperwork. Story 11. There is too much paperwork to change your name. I have been in for 12 years, and I still have my maiden name. Story 12. You are absolutely going to go to bed angry with each other. Story 13. It was heartwarming to see people genuinely excited when they saw a couple in wedding clothes in Las Vegas, which had us laughing out loud. Many intoxicated women shouted, "Did you just get married?" And were so happy for us when we confirmed. It was a super fun experience. Story 14. I accidentally locked my car keys in the trunk the morning after our wedding. I learned that my new husband was a spectacularly good sport, spending several hours disassembling the car to retrieve them. Story 15. I learned that he just wasn't that into me. He assumed I was fine and carried on, filling his time with his own activities while I waited to spend time together. Story 16. We should have taken a big vacation together before we got married. Our honeymoon was our first big trip together, and we had different expectations. I wanted to do everything, and my husband wanted to stay in and relax. It is not a deal breaker for us. We have learned to adapt how we enjoy vacations so we are both happy. But the honeymoon would have been more fun if we had figured that out beforehand. Story 17. My husband promised the entire wedding party $25 for every thumbs up they could sneak into the pictures. Story 18. The thing I had waited for my whole life was a sham. I would be doing most of the housework. Equality still had a long way to go in marriage. Story 19. There are special towels that must never be used and must always be displayed in case someone more important than I am drops by. Story 20. Some men think they can relax or that courtship is over after marrying a woman, but you should keep them on their toes and not let them get too comfortable. Story 21. I was told that as a woman I was responsible for planning, buying groceries, and making dinner every night for the rest of my life, as well as cleaning the home and doing laundry. all while holding down a full-time job and caring for baby number one. Yes. Story 22. My wife and I lived together for most of our relationship before getting married, about 6 years, so not much changed. We knew what we were getting into, and we have had a wonderful married life. We learned how many people will be upset if you elope instead of throwing a big party with free food and drinks. Story 23. I discovered that my husband had 2 half-brothers and 2 stepbrothers on his estranged father's side, whom I had never heard of during the 5 years we had been together. I answered the phone when a half-brother called his mother's house the day after the wedding. There was some explaining to do. Story 24. My wife was nearly impossible to wake up in the morning. Story 25. The Social Security Department is a soul-crushing place, and you really do not want to have to go there unless it is necessary, which is why I refuse to ever change my name again. Story 26. Everyone in your immediate vicinity will ask you daily if you are pregnant or when you are planning to have children. This happens only if you are a woman, of course. It drove me insane. Story 27. My partner's family will throw a party even when there is none. I was the most underdressed person at my license signing. We ate Thai food and drank top-tier champagne while watching the good, the bad, and the ugly. Everyone else wore formal attire and danced to house music in the background. Story 28. I realized how unloved I was by my spouse. His brother ruined our wedding night, and he defended him instead of making sure I was all right. My husband slept alone in a hotel room that night, and we separated 6 months later after he attempted to strangle me while he was drunk. Story 29. Do not go to work or leave the house. The lockdown started the following week. Story 30. My wife was a much bigger football fan than I was. I was more into motorsports. She has grown to enjoy motorsports, and I now enjoy watching football. She has attended National Hot Rod Association and Sports Car Club of America multi-day events, and I have gone to National Football League games. We watch Grand Prix motorcycle racing on a delay, but we rarely miss a local National Football League game live. It is Monday Night Football tonight, and we are going to have fun watching the game and drinking wine. Hobby-wise, my wife and I are opposites, and we learn more about each other's interests every day. Story 31. I can make much better, more intricate drum beats with my hands now that I have a ring on my finger. Story 32. I learned that sometimes you just do not know someone as well as you think. Even after 11 years together, we married, and his bad qualities intensified. 2 years into the marriage, we are headed for divorce. Story 33. A group of people got drunk and hooked up after our reception. Story 34. We lived together for a year and a half before getting married. My parents were very conservative and strongly opposed my living with him before marriage, but I am glad I did not listen to them. Having already lived together, our transition into marriage was very easy. 6 years later, things are still good. Story 35. I'm one of those sick fucks who thinks saying wifey is cute and enjoys wife life. Story 36. A new life actually starts. Sounds cheesy, but you basically start your life over as a married person. I did not have much life experience, but after I got married, my wife and I traveled the world and lived in several countries before settling down near home. I hate when people say, "Oh, I want to enjoy life before getting married." They do not realize that life can begin after marriage. Story 37. I learned that I am the one who will be responsible for everything and everyone. Story 38. I had neglected to pack anything to change into the morning after my wedding. Story 39. I lived in Kentucky, and my future husband lived in Cleveland. So when we got married, everything surprised me. Story 40. My ex was living off his mother's credit cards and only worked part-time. Story 41. Nothing changes except being able to call him my husband, which is fun. Story 42. Nothing changed. Our entire wedding cost £400, and we got exactly the same result as if we had spent £40,000. We went to bed, woke up married, and carried on with life. Story 43. My spouse loads the dishwasher differently than I do, and apparently their way is the right way. We went from, "I love you forever" to, "Why are you putting the mugs on the bottom rack?" in less than 24 hours. Story 44. Having an open marriage can be a lot of fun and also baffles many people. Some people get angry because you are comfortable with others being intimate with your spouse and offer no reason beyond, "It does not match my beliefs, so you are wrong." We have been married 6 years and together 9. We are still open and still having a blast. You do not own your partner's body. You should communicate your boundaries and preferences, but you cannot decide for them. You can influence their decisions by telling them honestly and early what you want and need in the relationship. Tell your partner how much importance you place on sex. For most people, a private, unique connection in the bedroom is critical. For others, sex is mostly recreational or physical pleasure, is more a bodily demand than a necessity for the relationship, so factors like quality time and how you treat each other are the make or break aspects. Discussing these points and ensuring compatibility is mandatory and should be done well before marriage. Story 45. Marriage was a silly mistake. The government has no business being included in my life like that. Story 46. Never schedule a big event and a 5 a.m. flight the next day. What a horrible mistake. Story 47. Sitting in a parking lot 3 days after the wedding, I realized I had married far too early and had made a gigantic mistake. We divorced 17 years later. I should have divorced in the first month. Story 48. Oh man, the number of little hair clips is enormous. I find them everywhere, and it's usually fine until I step on one or roll over it in bed. Those little things really hurt. Story 49. She thinks it is funny to fart in bed when we are falling asleep. We lived together before we married, and after that she joked that I could not escape, so she will not hold them in. I love that woman. Story 50. It showed that my new family really does like and support me. I was exhausted after the day, even though it was a simple garden ceremony and backyard reception. My wife's mothers know I am not great at social events, and my in-laws insisted it was okay for me to go upstairs and take a nap for a while before we headed out for our weekend away. I woke up 2 hours later and almost everything had been cleaned up. Compare that to my first wedding, when my now ex's family all came over at 8 p.m. and insisted that we open all the presents for hours, even though we had a 6 a.m. flight the next morning. For context, I was assigned female at birth, married to a man the first time, and married a Mexican woman who had been raised by lesbians the second time. My wife and I have been together for 5 years now. It is far from easy, but it is so much better when you have someone who is actually in your corner. Story 51. I apparently cannot stop fiddling with the ring on my finger. Story 52. Men make a lot of grunting noises. My husband needed new underwear. He is a serious cuddler and is not as handy as I assumed he would be. He is a serious Star Wars and comic book fan. He likes all my skincare products. Story 53. People have opinions about eloping with someone you met a week prior. My dad said, "Can he handle being married to her?" His mom said, "Well, I guess it's not the craziest thing you've ever done." Everyone was mad that we did not throw a big, stupid, expensive party and said it would not last. Last month was our 12th anniversary. Story 54. Men absolutely do not care about the labor you put into the home, childbirth, and child rearing. Story 55. Figure out the division of chores early, or resentment will grow. Your spouse is not your parent. Be a decent roommate. Story 56. I do not know. It is really fun to call your spouse husband or wife. Story 57. I did not think I would cry at my wedding, but I cried the whole time. Story 58. Chairs need many pillows. If there is still room to sit, they need more. Story 59. Men pass gas frequently. He used to step away, but after marriage he simply lifts a cheek. Story 60. I cannot access external links. Please paste the text here. Also confirm how you want acronyms handled. Expand each acronym to its full phrase every time. Expand only on first use and remove the acronym, or replace acronyms with a generic description. Which English variant do you prefer? US or UK? Story 61. Changing your last name is such a pain. Laughing out loud. Other than that, life was pretty much the same with new jewelry. Story 62. Not my experience, but my aunt's. It was just a piece of paper. Sure, a commitment, a symbol to show others that you are committed to each other. A religious aspect, if that is important to you. She said nothing changed from when she and her now husband were dating, except for a ridiculously expensive ring. Also, changing the last name is way too much paperwork. She kept her maiden name. Story 63. Property laws in your state matter. One annoyance was having both of us on a car title, which meant we had to go together to sell it and sign over and notarize the title. I never had another car in both our names again. Story 64. The first time I got drunk before the ceremony was a bad idea. The second time, getting drunk after the ceremony was also a bad idea. I tend to go overboard when I reach a tipping point, and it ends with me praying to the porcelain gods. Story 65. Changing my last name on my social security card at the social security office is a pain in the ass. Story 66. I expected it to be fun because of the wonderful man I found, and I was right. It has been 12 years now, and I am so glad I get to do life with him. On the practical side, when you move in, check whether you have a shower curtain before the stores close for the night. Story 67. It was no different from being unmarried, since we had been living together for 3 years by that point. Story 68. Everyone assumes I took his last name, but I haven't, even on my social media. I'm now receiving wedding invitations addressed to me using his last name. Story 69. There are many complaints about husbands. Young women should do a build-a-husband exercise to help avoid abusers, cheaters, and other problematic partners. Story 70. I learned before marriage that you do not have to share a bank account like our boomer parents did. She did not want permission to buy a purse or shoes, and I did not want permission to buy another guitar. We have never had an argument about money. Story 71. For the first time in my life, buying a new guitar was a group decision. As a side note, I'm a professional musician, so once I explained how tax write-offs work, my husband was much more on board. Story 72. When we were married, my husband's hands were very sweaty. My first words to him were that he was all sweaty, which amused the registrar. Story 73. Within an hour, I learned he could fly a plane and that a sky shower does not feel the same. Story 74. 50% of marriages end in divorce, but 100% of divorces begin with a marriage. Story 75. Nothing changed for us. We had been together for years before getting married, and life continued as it always had. There were no big revelations or insights, just us and what we had always had. Story 76. First marriage. I was expected to know how to do all domestic tasks while also working. I was 17. I knew how to clean a house like no one's business, could peel a potato better than an army cook, and could iron anything. But no one taught me how to cook healthy meals, and I didn't know how to do laundry. Why didn't I? I was a woman, after all. It was my job to know these things. Fine. Mother did it all and worked outside the home as well. She taught me a little but stopped if I wanted to cook. She said I wouldn't do it right. The laundry was hers. I could hang clothes on the line and I was great at ironing, but I didn't know what I should have known. He certainly didn't know anything about domestic work. He knew how to work hard, change a tire, and fix things. He was also 17. Second marriage. He knew domestic tasks as well as I did and shared the chores. I also did the work outside. That was my space. He was fine with that. He would rather not do it anyway. 32 years later, we are still doing well together. Story 77. Aside from the bobby pin top comment, nothing changed. We had been together for over 7 years and had lived together for more than 5 when we got married. We have been together for almost 9 years now, and our marriage is amazing. I love him more than I thought was ever possible. He never ceases to amaze me with how wonderful he is. Story 78. My in-laws hated me, but not as much as my parents did. Story 79. Regret. Just kidding. I learned that marriage does not magically change anything. Story 80. Clichés and jokes about marital sex and the lack thereof can be very true. Story 81. After spending 6 months with Blue Balls for Jesus, I discovered that my wife has no interest in sex. Story 82. We were so tired that we were not really up for sex. But we still did it because it was our wedding night. Story 83. I learned that at Walmart, bags of the wrong chip clips exist. Story 84. Marriage quickly teaches that love is easy, but teamwork takes work. Story 85. I am a married woman now. Being really independent, it took a while to get used to that. Story 86. Even if you lived together before marriage, there are still growing pains. Something about marriage changes the dynamic. My husband and I are growing and changing every day for the better. I love him more now than on our wedding day. Story 87. You have to communicate with your partner. You're no longer on your own for better or worse. Took me some time to adjust. Story 88. People assumed I was the de facto cook in the house because I am female. Story 89. There is a lot of paperwork to sign if you have to change your name. Story 90. It stopped being about me. My partner became the priority. Story 91. You need to set firm boundaries with your parents and in-laws. Story 92. I was in over my head, like a grain of sand at the bottom of the Mariana Trench. At least I get stirred up once in a while. I had no idea what my part was, and I still do not. Who needs me for anything? I might as well have married a blind, deaf rodeo clown in a barrel. Story 93. There were no homeless shelters for married couples without children. During curfew and at eviction you will be physically separated, with nobody to watch your back so you can sleep, and placed in human warehousing with mandatory sermon attendance. Story 94. My husband hung his dirty socks on the bedroom doorknob 55 years ago. Story 95. I should have lived with him for a couple of years before marriage. Story 96. If the pastor does not sign the marriage license before the ceremony in my state, you are legally required to obtain a new marriage license and hold a new ceremony. We were legally married out of town during our honeymoon. Story 97. There is a lot more to changing your last name than I thought. Story 98. Having kids is not as easy as you might think for many people, in my opinion. Story 99. You are going to have to find a way to communicate difficult things, even if it makes you uncomfortable. Otherwise, you risk building up resentment because of unspoken expectations. Story 100. The amount of paperwork you have to do after your marriage is insane. Story 101. If you take your partner's last name, you have to change your name on so many things. What a pain. Story 102. I learned that we always had each other's backs, no matter what. Story 103. We turned into our parents. He became like his father, and I became like my mother. It took a while to mindfully become aware of this and to work through it. Story 104. Sex after marriage does not become non-existent. I have been married to my husband for almost 19 years, and we still have sex. Story 105. People say you are literally a different person after getting married. That everything is completely altered, yet nothing changes drastically. That sounds contradictory, but I will explain. Getting married is a milestone, like your first job, losing your virginity, or having your first child. These life events are huge and change you, but because many people experience them and they do not reshape most daily routines, they can also feel mundane. They are not the same as joining the military, where every aspect of daily life, including location and the people around you, is very different, or becoming a type 1 diabetic, where daily life looks the same but every approach to it becomes unfamiliar. When you get married, your approach to life remains largely the same, with the added reality of being married. Everything is a little different and also very much the same. I realized this on the first day after our wedding night, lying on our honeymoon and looking at my husband while I still had to work on my laptop because no one else could do my work for me. It made me see how much we build these events up in our heads compared with how they actually feel. Not that marriage was less than I imagined. It is better than anything I could have dreamed, but it is also different. My mental image had been painted by romance novels, sitcoms, anime, movies, and couples I have seen. In reality, my husband and I, with him a video gaming, anime watching, tractor driving, orchard tending total goofball, are far better artists of our life together. Story 106. I made a horrible mistake. Took me 2 more years to get out of it. Story 107. We were told that if we did not finish all the bottles included with the venue booking, we could take the remaining bottles home. Story 108. You won't be getting many or even any blowjobs once you're married. Story 109. Marriage doesn't change the relationship dynamic. Living together is a different story. Story 110. There is no cognitive reality among them. Are they complaining about the high cost of government again? Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.